Today we're going to talk about factoring. There are a few different ways to factor. The first way we want to go over is GCF, greatest common factor. Let's look at an example like this, 6x cubed plus 5x squared plus 7x. And what we should notice is that we have an x in every single term, so we can factor that out to the front, which leaves us with 6x squared plus 5x plus 7. Really what I'm doing is dividing each term by the x. That's how I get the 6x squared, the 5x, and the 7. So again, what we're doing off to the side or in our head, 6x cubed divided by x is 6x squared. 5x squared divided by the x in front is 5x. And 7x is divided by x, and that's just our 7. Other GCF examples, if we have something like 8x squared plus 4x plus 2, we should see that we can pull a 2 out in front. 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 in parentheses. They can be a little bit more complicated. 2x cubed y minus 12x squared y to the 4th. So looking at the numbers 2 and 12, greatest common factor is 2. If I have 3 x's, x cubed means 3 x's in the first term, 2 x's in the second term, then the greatest common factor is x squared. And if I have a y in the first term and a y to the 4th in the second term, the greatest common factor is y. And again, divide, what we're doing is dividing or pulling out 2x cubed y by our 2x squared y, our greatest common factor. That just leaves us with an x. And if I take my second term, negative 12x squared y to the 4th, and divide it by 2x squared y, we should see that we get negative 6y cubed. All right, one more GCF. What about 49xy squared minus 21x squared y cubed plus 84x cubed y to the 4th? And again, we always want to try GCF first. Pull out our greatest common factor. Our greatest common factor is 7 between 49, negative 21, and 84. Between x squared and x cubed, it's just an x. And between y squared, y cubed, and y to the 4th, it's y squared. And again, divide every single term by our GCF, 7xy squared. That gives me 7. And that's it. Okay. Divide by 7xy squared, and that gives me negative 3xy. Divide by our GCF, 7xy squared, and that gives me 12x squared y squared. And there you have it, factoring by GCF. Let's talk about actual factoring, and I'm just going to call it sort of real factoring here, because we start with GCF if we can, but I'll be honest with you, you're not going to see GCF very much. But when you do, you might still have to do step 2, which is real factoring. But sometimes factoring, we'll call this part A, has special cases. Sometimes factoring has special cases, and you'll see what we're talking about. For instance, what if we have x squared minus 9? Well, what you should see in your head, and again, I'll be sure to explain, is that this is an x squared, and this 9 is 3 squared with just a subtract in between. How would we say this if we wanted to use words? Well, subtract means difference. And since I have two things being squared, this is the difference of two squares. So this factors a very special way, and that is x plus 3, the things inside my parentheses with a plus, and then the things in my parentheses with a minus, x minus 3. Difference of squares always factors like that. So another one might be x squared minus 36. Using our difference of squares, that would be x plus 6, x minus 6. Stepping up the level of difficulty, what about 9x squared minus 121? Again, you should see in your head as you look at this problem that that's 3x squared, and 121 is 11 squared with a subtract. So 3x plus 11, 3x minus 11. Difference of squares, and as you do these more and more, it'll pop right into your head. What about if I give you something like this, x squared plus 8x plus 16? This is our other special rule. This is just x plus 4 squared. And what I have in my head here is that 16 is 4 squared, and 8 is 2 times that 4. And that's what gives me the idea that this might just be a parentheses squared. What about if we said x squared minus, x squared minus 10x plus 25? Again, in our head, we should think, well, 25 is 5 squared. 2 times 5 is 10. Ah, so this must be one of these like that. X and 5. What do you think is going to go in between there? Yeah, it's going to have to be a negative. Now, you could always check your work, and I encourage you to do that. X minus 5 squared means x minus 5, x minus 5. If I FOILed, x squared first, outer, inner, last. And when I combine those, yeah, I get with the problem that I started with. So that tells me that I do have the right answer. Excellent. It's always nice to check your work. Even better when you check your work and get the right answer. You verify that you have the correct answer. And it wouldn't be a good lesson without a challenging problem. Again, as you're looking at this, you're saying 36. Man, I know that's a perfect square. So I'm thinking 6x squared in my head. You look at 49, and as soon as you see 49, I know that you're thinking in your head, that's just 7 squared. And then somewhere, you're also thinking, man, 7 times 6 times 2 does equal 84. Oh, I see. So then this would be a 6x plus 7 squared factor. You could check your work if you wanted to, but we do have the right answer. Let's get away from special cases and just do some actual factoring problems. Let's try x squared minus 2x minus 48. How are we going to do these? Now, you might know this already. You might be able to do it in your head. I'm going to write it out because when all else fails, writing it out is a great thing to do. First, I'm going to notice that in front of my x squared is a 1. It's just hiding. So, first step, I'm going to take that purple 1 times my negative 48. That is negative 48. And I'm going to list all the ways to multiply to 48. 148, 224, 316, 412, 5 doesn't work, 6 and 8 do work. All right, that's the first step. And actually, I have a worksheet posted on Canvas that will help you with this. This is step 1. We listed, well, step 1 was the multiply. Step 2, we listed the multiples. Step 3, we need to determine the sign of each column. How do I do that? Well, first, I need to figure out this sign. All right, C in this case is negative or less than 0. If it's less than 0, how do you multiply with two numbers to get a negative number? That means you have to have one be a positive and one be a negative. So I'm looking at my columns, and I need one column to be positive, one to be negative. The sign of the right column is right here. So the right column must be my negative column. So by default, since my columns have to have different signs, this must be my positive column. Okay, because C, or the 48, is negative, the columns have to have different signs. Now we just, step 4, we add up our rows. Negative 47, negative 22, negative 13, negative 8, negative 2. And I look for the row that adds to what we call our B term, negative 2. So then that just gives me my answer. I'm going to do an X with my plus 6, and I'm going to do an X with my minus 8. Again, if you can do this in your head, that's outstanding. I'm just writing it down the first couple of times in case anybody needs to see it written down. And if you write it down, I would never, never, ever be upset with you. Let's try another one. So we know that there's a 1 hiding in front of our X. Step 1, multiply. That gives me negative 70. Step 2, list my factors. 170, 235, 3 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, 5 works, 6, 7 works, and that's it. Now we need to determine our signs. Since 70 is negative, that means my columns must have different signs. The sign of the right column, or my larger column, is right there. It must have the pluses, which means my left column must have the minuses. Add my rows. Whoops. 69, 33, 9, 3. Which row adds up to the B row, or the B term? That gives me my answer, X minus 7, X plus 10. Let's try one more. X squared plus 2x plus 24. Again, there's a 1 hiding in front of my 24, or my x squared. 1 times 24 is 24. List the multiples of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. This time, my 24 is positive. 24 is, or the C term, is greater than 0, or 24 is greater than 0. That means my column signs will be the same. And again, the right column gets its sign from right there. So it will be pluses, and since we said they are the same, the left row will be pluses. The left column will be pluses, I'm sorry. Add our rows, 25, 14, 11, and 10, and we find which row adds to our B term. That's actually no row. So we call this polynomial prime because it cannot be factored. Okay. And that will happen every once in a while. Can't be factored. Another example, x squared minus 7x plus 10. Again, we know that there is a 1 hiding in front of the x squared. 1 times 10 is 10. Multiples of 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. The 10 is positive. Let me change that and write it to C is greater than 0. So that must mean my column signs are the same. Get the sign from the right column from right there. And if the columns have the same sign, then they're both negative. Add the rows, negative 11, negative 7. That's the row I need. X minus 2, X minus 5. Okay, enough of those. Let's step up level of difficulty. And we're not going to let the number, or A, in front of x squared be a 1 anymore. So now it's going to be a number. And again, we're going to follow the similar steps at the beginning. We're going to have to add steps at the end, and this is where you could use the factoring guide that I have for you to help you. All right, let's go through our steps. Step 1, we still start with A times C. I'll write it as a negative 60. Doesn't matter if we keep that positive or negative, really, but we'll keep it negative to be correct. List our factors. 160, 230, 320, 415, 610, 7, 8, 9. Doesn't work. Okay, there we go. Look at C. Negative 15 is obviously less than 0. That means I need a positive column and a negative column. My right column, my large column, gets its sign from there. Negative, 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 negative. And I don't need to write it, but I will. Positive, 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 because they have to be different. Add my rows. We're all ready to, what? Step 4. All right, negative 59, negative 28, negative 17, negative 11, negative 4. Which row adds to my B term? There. Okay, but we are not done. We cannot just slap this 6 and 10 into our answer like we did before. So here's what we're going to do. I call it the window method. We're going to draw what I think looks like a window, and you generally draw a picture of a house. It looks like this. All right, step 5A. Place the ax squared in the top left. Ax squared, well, we know a is 4 in this problem, so it's 4x squared. Place C in the bottom right box. C in this problem is negative 15. Now we place our row numbers, 6 and negative 10, wherever we want. All right, it doesn't matter. So you could put 6 and negative 10, or you could do negative 10 and 6. But if you notice, I have a note on the guide. You need to put an X after that. These need to be linear terms. Don't worry about the name linear. Just know that they have to have X's. So it doesn't matter where the negative 10 and the 6 go. It does matter that they have X's. Step 6 is find the GCF of each row and each column. What's the So let's start right here. GCF of 4x squared and 6x. 2x. What's the GCF of negative 10x and negative 15? Negative 5. Let's do our columns. Left column, GCF, 2x. Right column, GCF, 3. Now, I also have a note. The right column, the sign of our red box, our 6x is positive, so my 3 must be positive. These have to have the same sign. And my bottom left box and my GCF for the bottom row have to have the same sign, and they do. They're both negative. So now that we've done that, step 7, says our answers come from the outside. So on top I have 2x plus 3. On the left I have 2x minus 5, and I have factored 4x squared minus 4x minus 15. Let's do another one. We definitely need some practice with this. 6x squared plus 71x minus 12. Multiply a and b. That's negative 72. List your multiples. 1, 72, 2, 36, 3, 24, 4, 18, 5, no, 6 and 12, 7, no, 8 and 9. All right. So that's all of those. Look at 12. That's negative. That means my columns have to be different. Looking at my 71, which is positive, my right column is my positives. That makes my left column the negatives. Add my rows. Oh, look at that. Sweet. First row gives me my 71. Excellent. Now we can do our window. Six x squared top left, negative 12 bottom right. Doesn't matter where you put your negative 1 and your 72. So I'll put my 72 up here, and I'll put my negative 1 down in the left. But again, we have to add those x's. Let's do some GCFs. Left column is just x. Right column looks to be 12. And again, we have to do GCF, greatest common factor. Top row, 6x. Bottom row, negative 1. Remember, this sign has to be the same as this sign. Now we just take our answers from the outside. Doesn't matter the order. X plus 12, 6x minus 1. 10x squared minus 17x plus 6. Multiply a and c. That gives me 60. List my multiples. 160, 230, 320, 415, 512, 610, 789. No. Okay. Figure out my signs. Since this is positive, they have to be the same sign. So I look here to figure out the sign of my right column. And again, they have to be the same. Add up my rows. Negative 61, negative 32, negative 23, negative 19, negative 17. Stop, because that's RB. Don't keep adding once you get what you need. Fill in our window. 10x squared, 6. Now we have to fill in our negative 5, negative 12. Doesn't matter where. I'll go negative 5, negative 12, but I do have to put those x's in there. Remember, now we do GCF. This has to be a negative because this is negative, and this one has to be a negative because this is negative. Remember, those signs have to be consistent. GCF left column, 2x. GCF right column, negative 1. GCF top row, 5x. GCF bottom row, negative 6. Get our answer from the outside, 2x minus 1, 5x minus 6. One more. 6x squared plus 19x plus 15. You want to pause it? Go ahead. Then check your answer. I'm always fine with that. Because I know what you're going to do. You're going to follow your steps. You're going to say 6 times 15 is 90. You're going to list your multiples. 4 does not work. You're going to look at 15. It's positive. That means my columns will have the same sign. This tells me my right column is plus. And you don't have to write the pluses, but I'm just doing it to emphasize. And since they're the same, they're both plus. Let's add some rows. 91, 47, 33, 23, 21, 19. There we go. Let's make our window. (6x squared), 15, fill in. I'll put the 9x here. I'll put the 10x there. Do some GCFs. Left column, 2x. Right column, positive 3. Top row, 3x. Bottom row, positive 5. Get our answers from the outside. 2x plus 3, 3x plus 5. There you have it. And that's how we factor.